The Fog, the Memory, and the Murderer, full audiobook. Chapter 1, The Return. I woke that morning to a smell I hadn't encountered in 50 years. It wasn't unpleasant, quite the opposite. It was the scent of the sea carried inland on warm air, mixed with earth and new grass and something else I couldn't name. Something that made my chest tighten with a feeling I didn't want to examine too closely. Ellen was already up. I could hear her moving around in the kitchen below, the familiar sounds of coffee brewing and dishes clinking. I lay there in our bed staring at the ceiling, trying to understand why my heart was racing. Then I looked out the window and saw it fog. Thick, rolling fog that turned our quiet Main Street into something otherworldly. The kind of fog that shouldn't exist in October, that belonged to a different season entirely. Strawberry spring, that's what we called it back in college. A false spring that came in the fall, bringing with it warm air and that strange, sweet fog. I got dressed slowly, my hands shaking as I buttoned my shirt. When I came down to breakfast, Ellen took one look at my face and set down her coffee cup. "Art, what's wrong?" "The fog," I said. "Do you smell it?" She went to the window, looked out at our garden disappearing into white. "It's just fog, honey. We get it sometimes this time of year." But it wasn't just fog. I knew that, even if I couldn't explain it to her. I picked up the morning paper she'd left on the table, and there it was, buried on page 3. Woman's body found near New Sharon College campus. Police investigating. The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. New Sharon, my old school. The place where what? The memory slipped away like water through my fingers. "Art, you're pale. Should I call Dr. Morrison?" I shook my head, folding the paper so I couldn't see that headline anymore. "I'm fine. Just didn't sleep well." The phone rang then, shrill and unexpected. Ellen answered it, listened for a moment, then held it out to me with a puzzled expression. "It's someone named Tommy Reed. Says he's an old friend from college." I took the phone with a hand that had gone numb. "Arthur Mulligan?" The voice was older, rougher than I remembered, but unmistakably Tommy's. "I know it's been a long time, but I had to call. You've seen the news, haven't you? About New Sharon?" Yes. Just now. It's happening again, Art. The fog came back 3 days ago. And now this. Just like before. Before. The word echoed in my head, opening doors I'd kept locked for half a century. "I don't understand what you're—" "Spring of '68, the murders. Don't tell me you've forgotten." But I had forgotten. Or at least I'd buried it so deep that it felt like someone else's memory. Images flickered at the edge of my consciousness. Stone steps slick with fog, the dark shapes of Civil War cannons on the quad. Someone screaming in the distance. "Art, you still there?" "I'm here," I whispered. "Tommy, I need to think about this. Can I call you back?" "Sure, but be careful, okay? Whatever was out there in the fog back then, I think it's back." After I hung up, Ellen was watching me with worried eyes. "Art, what was that about?" "Old news," I said, trying to smile. "Ancient history." But as I sat there, the fog pressing against our windows, I knew it wasn't history at all. It was present tense, and somehow, impossibly, I was part of it. Chapter 2, Fragments. The rest of that day I couldn't settle. I'd sit down with a book and find myself staring at the same page for 20 minutes. I'd start to do something in the garden and forget what I'd come outside for. Ellen kept glancing at me, that little furrow of concern between her eyebrows getting deeper. That evening, after dinner, I told her I needed to go through some old boxes in the attic. She didn't ask why, just squeezed my hand and told me to be careful on the ladder. The attic was hot and dusty, full of the accumulated debris of a long life. I found what I was looking for in the third box. I opened a stack of yellowed newspapers from 1968, carefully preserved in plastic sleeves. New Sharon College Gazette. My byline was on half the articles. I sat on an old trunk and began to read. March 16, 1968, strange fog blankets campus. Students report unusual weather pattern. That was my first article about it. I remembered writing it, or thought I did. I'd interviewed meteorology students, made jokes about spring fever. It was lighthearted, innocent. Then March 20th, first-year student reported missing. Her name was Christine Harmon, 19 years old, psychology major. Last seen walking from the library to her dormitory on a foggy evening. I'd written about how her roommate had waited up all night, how the campus security had organized search parties. I didn't remember any of this. Or rather, I remembered it the way you remember a movie you saw once, as something that happened to other people. March 25th, body found near Civil War cannons, campus in shock. My hands were shaking now. I remembered those cannons. They sat on a hill overlooking the quad, relics from some long ago battle, cold iron painted black. Students used to sit on them between classes, eating lunch, talking, laughing. They found Christine draped across one of the cannons. That's what the article said, in the careful language of a young journalist trying not to sensationalize a tragedy. But reading it now, I could see what I'd left out, the details that were too horrible to print. I found those details in my old notebooks, tucked in the same box. Pages and pages of handwritten notes, some of them almost illegible. My handwriting, but younger, more aggressive. She was positioned deliberately. This wasn't random. Someone wanted her to be found like that. Police won't say how she died, won't confirm if there were other injuries. But I heard one of them throwing up in the bushes. Everyone's scared. Girls won't walk alone anymore. But the fog keeps coming back. Art? Ellen's voice from below. You okay up there? Fine, I called back too quickly. Just looking for something. I turned to the next article. April 3rd, second victim discovered. Campus killer still at large. This one was different. The writing was sharper, more urgent. I'd started to show my fear between the lines. Sarah Mitchell Jr., found near the library. Another foggy night. Another impossible murder that no one saw, no one heard. And then I found something that made my blood run cold. Tucked between the newspapers was a photograph. Not a published one, this was personal, taken with someone's cheap camera. It showed a group of students sitting on the library steps. I recognized some of them, Tommy Reed, his hair long and wild. Sarah Mitchell herself smiling, unaware that she had only days to live. And there at the edge of the frame, barely visible in the fog behind them, was a figure, dark, watching. I brought the photo closer to my face, squinting at it in the dim attic light. There was something familiar about that figure's posture, the way it stood, something that made my stomach turn. I gathered up all the newspapers and the notebooks and the photograph and brought them downstairs. Ellen was in the living room reading. I need to show you something, I said. She looked at the old papers in my arms and set her book aside. What is all this? My past, I said. Something I think I've been hiding from, even from myself. I spread it all out on the coffee table, the articles, the notes, the photograph. Ellen read through them slowly, her expression growing more troubled. Art, these murders. I've never heard you mention them. Not once in 45 years of marriage. I know. Why? That was the question, wasn't it? Why had I buried this so completely? What was I so afraid of remembering? I don't know, I said. But I think I need to find out. Chapter 3. The call was Urasi Nomons. 2 days later, my phone rang again. This time it was a woman I didn't know. Mr. Mulligan, my name is Grace Keller. You don't know me, but you knew my sister. Christine Harmon. I sat down heavily in my desk chair. Christine, the first victim. Ms. Keller, I'm so sorry for your loss. It was 50 years ago, she said, but her voice was tight with old grief. I was only 12 when she died, but I never forgot. And neither did our mother. She passed last year, still wondering who killed her daughter. I wish I could help you, but you can. I've been going through Mother's things, and I found a box of old newspaper clippings. Your articles, Mr. Mulligan. You covered the murders more thoroughly than anyone. You interviewed people, investigated, dug into things the police wouldn't touch. Had I looked at my notebooks again, spread across the desk. There were details there I didn't remember gathering. Observations that seemed too intimate, too knowing. There's something else, Grace continued. I found a letter. It's addressed to you from 1968, but it was never sent. It's from Christine. She wrote it the day before she died. My mouth went dry. What does it say? She says she was afraid of someone. Someone who'd been following her. She wanted to meet you to talk about it because, Mr. Mulligan, she says in the letter that you would understand, that you knew something about what was happening. What did you know? I I can't remember. I'm sorry, I, or won't remember. Her voice wasn't accusatory, just sad. I'm sending you a copy of the letter. Maybe it will help. Maybe it won't. But my sister reached out to you for help, and she died before she could get it. I think you owe it to her to remember what you knew. After she hung up, I sat there staring at nothing. Ellen came in, took one look at my face, and knelt beside my chair. What is it? What did she say? A girl who died in 1968 wrote me a letter I never got. She said I knew something. Ellen, what if I could have stopped it? What if I knew who the killer was and I just forgot? That's not how memory works, Art. You can't forget something like that. But even as she said it, I could see the doubt in her eyes. Because we both knew that wasn't quite true. The mind protects itself. It buries what it can't handle. The letter arrived 2 days later. Grace had scanned it and sent it by email. Our grandson had helped us set up an account for things like this. I printed it out with shaking hands. The paper was thin, the ink faded but still legible. Christine's handwriting was neat, careful. Dear Arthur, I hope you don't mind me writing to you. We've only talked a few times, but you seem like someone who notices things, who pays attention. There's something wrong on campus. I know that sounds dramatic, but I can't shake this feeling. The fog came back 3 nights ago, and ever since then, I've felt like someone's watching me, following me. I saw you taking notes near the library yesterday. You were watching the fog too, weren't you? You were looking for something in it. Or maybe you were looking at someone. I think you know what I'm talking about. I think you've seen what I've seen. Can we meet? I need to talk to someone who understands that this isn't just paranoia, that there's really something out there. I'll be at the library tomorrow night studying. If you can come, please do. If not, I understand. But please be careful. Whatever's in that fog, it's not natural. It's not right. Christine, I read it 3 times. Each time a memory tried to surface something about the library, about fog swirling around stone columns, about watching and waiting. But every time I got close to it, the memory slipped away, leaving only a sick feeling in my stomach. Art, Ellen said quietly, did you meet her? The night she wrote this? I don't know. I can't remember. Try. I closed my eyes. Pushed myself back toward that night in 1968. I was 21 years old, a senior editor of the college newspaper. Ambitious. Smart. Maybe too smart. The fog. I remembered the fog. It had been thick that night, turning the campus into a maze of shadows and whispers. I'd been somewhere, walking somewhere, with my notebook in my hand. The library. Yes, I'd gone to the library. But after that, there was nothing. Just a blank space where memory should be, and a growing certainty that whatever happened that night was something I'd spent 50 years trying to forget. Chapter 4. Returning. The next morning, I told Ellen I needed to go back to New Sharon. Art, no. Whatever happened there, it's in the past. You don't need to. I do. I have to see it again. Maybe being there will help me remember. Or maybe it will make things worse. She wasn't wrong, but the not knowing was eating at me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that photograph, the dark figure in the fog. Every time I tried to sleep, I heard Christine's voice from that undelivered letter. You know what I'm talking about. Tommy Reed agreed to meet me there. He'd retired from his radio show but still lived nearby. When I pulled into the college parking lot 2 days later, he was already there, leaning against an old sedan, looking as nervous as I felt. Art, Jesus, it's good to see you. We shook hands. His grip was firm, but his hand trembled slightly. You too, Tommy. You look the same. Older, but the same. We're all older. He laughed, but it was hollow. Yeah. Yeah, we are. Listen, before we go in, I need to know how much do you remember? Not much. Fragments. The fog. The murders. But it's like looking at it through frosted glass. Tommy nodded slowly. Same. I remember being scared. I remember you writing those articles. But the details, they're fuzzy. Like a dream I can't quite recall. Do you remember Christine Harmon? His face changed. The first girl. Yeah, she was. She was sweet. Quiet. Didn't deserve what happened. She wrote me a letter. Wanted to meet me the night she died. Tommy's eyes widened. Did you meet her? I don't know. We walked onto campus together. It had changed, of course. New buildings, new paths. The students dressed in styles that would have seemed alien to us in 1968. But the bones of it were the same. The old library still stood, stone and imposing. And there, on the hill overlooking the quad, were the Civil War cannons. The fog had lifted that morning, but I could still feel it somehow. A weight in the air. A presence. They found Christine right there, Tommy said, pointing to the nearest cannon. I wasn't supposed to know that. They tried to keep it quiet, but word got around. I walked up the hill toward the cannons. Each step felt heavier than the last. When I reached them, I put my hand on the cold iron, and suddenly I was 21 again. It wasn't a memory, it was more than that. It was like I'd fallen backward through time. I could feel the fog wet against my face. Could hear voices somewhere in the darkness. Could see a girl running toward me. Christine, her face white with terror. Please, she was saying. Please, you have to help me. He's coming. He's someone miss. Then she looked past me at something behind me, and her scream cut through the night. Art, snap out of it! Tommy was shaking my shoulder. I realized I was on my knees beside the cannon, tears streaming down my face. What happened? What did you see? She was running to me. She thought I would help her. Did you? I looked up at him. I don't know. Tommy, I can't remember what happened next. It's like there's a wall in my head and I can't get past it. He helped me to my feet. Maybe that's your mind protecting you. Maybe some things are better left forgotten. But as we walked back toward the parking lot, I knew that wasn't true. The past wasn't staying buried. It was bleeding through, demanding to be remembered. And somewhere in my fractured memory was the truth about that night, about Christine, about all of them, about who I'd been in that fog. Chapter 5. The Archives. I couldn't leave it alone. That night, back in my motel room, I called the college and asked if their archives were open to the public. They were. The next morning I was there when they unlocked the doors. The student worker who helped me was polite, patient with my slow explanations of what I needed. She brought me box after box of materials from 1968, not just newspapers, but yearbooks, student organization records, police reports that had been donated years ago. I worked through lunch, through dinner. Tommy called twice, but I didn't answer. I was getting close to something. I could feel it. In a box marked Campus Security Records 1967-1968, I found incident reports. Most were mundane noise complaints, minor thefts, drunk students. But there were others, starting in late February, that made my hands shake as I read them. February 20th, student reports feeling followed while walking across campus at night. No suspect found. March 3rd, female student claims someone has been watching her dorm window. Investigation inconclusive. March 10th, multiple reports of a figure seen near the library in heavy fog. Witnesses unable to provide description. March 15th, Christine Harmon reports harassment. States she is being stalked, but cannot identify stalker. March 16th, Christine Harmon fails to return to dormitory. Reported missing. March 17th, body of Christine Harmon discovered. Homicide investigation initiated. There were more reports after that. Other girls seeing things in the fog. Other victims before they became victims. Sarah Mitchell had filed a complaint on March 30th. Found dead April 3rd. Lisa Brennan had reported strange phone calls on April 8th. Found dead April 11th. A pattern. Clear as day. Someone hunting in the fog. And all these girls had known they were being hunted. Had tried to get help. Had died anyway. Then I found something else. A police report from April 15th, 1968, An interview with a witness named Michael Chang, who lived in the same dorm as me. Subject states he observed Arthur Mulligan leaving the dormitory at approximately 10 p.m. on the night of April 11th. Subject noted this was unusual, as Mulligan typically spent evenings working on newspaper and student center. When Mulligan returned at approximately 2 a.m., subject observed his clothes were wet and he appeared disoriented. When questioned, Mulligan claimed he had been walking in the fog, but could not account for his time. April 11, the night Lisa Brennan died. I sat back in my chair, the room spinning slightly. I'd been out that night. 4 hours I couldn't account for. Just like now, I couldn't remember. The student worker approached my table. "Sir, we're closing in 15 minutes. Wait, please. I need to see one more thing. Do you have student newspaper archives? Specifically articles that weren't published?" She hesitated, then nodded. "We have some material from the Gazette office. Files and drafts, but they're not cataloged well. It might take some time to find specific items." "I have time." 20 minutes later, they'd agreed to let me stay a bit longer. She returned with a manila folder. This was in a desk drawer. Notes and drafts from spring 1968. The label says A. Mulligan. My folder. My notes from 50 years ago. I opened it with trembling hands. The first few pages were article drafts, rough versions of the stories I'd published. But underneath those were other pages. Notes in my handwriting that grew increasingly erratic, harder to read. I see him now. In the fog. He's always there. The police are blind. They can't see what I see. I know who he is. I know what he does. I've watched him. Does he know I'm watching? Does he know I know? Sometimes I think I am him. Sometimes I think I've always been him. The last page was different. It was dated April 16, 1968, one day after that police interview. The handwriting was barely legible. I have to stop. Have to make it stop. The fog shows me things I don't want to see. Shows me who I really am. What I'm capable of. I can't trust my own memories anymore. Can't trust my own hands. If you're reading this, future me, know that I'm sorry. Sorry for what I did. Sorry for what I might still do. The fog comes back every spring. Strawberry spring. And when it does, I'm not myself anymore. Or maybe I'm finally myself. Maybe that's worse. I stood up so fast my chair fell backward. The student worker jumped. "Are you all right, sir?" No. No, I wasn't all right. Because I'd found the truth, and it was worse than I'd imagined. I wasn't the reporter who'd covered the murders. I was the murderer. Chapter 6. Confession. I don't remember driving back to the motel. Don't remember Tommy calling again, his voice worried on the voicemail. Don't remember anything until I was sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at those notes spread out before me. Sometimes I think I am him. My own words. My own handwriting. My own terrible truth. I called Ellen. She answered on the second ring. "Art, thank God. I've been worried. You haven't been answering, and Ellen, I need to tell you something. Something about who I was. Who I might still be." She was quiet for a moment. "You're scaring me. I'm scared too. Ellen, those murders in 1968, I think I did them. I think when the fog came, I became someone else. Someone who hurt people. Killed them. And then I forgot. I buried it so deep I convinced myself I was just a reporter writing about it. Art, that's not possible. You're not capable of..." "How do you know?" My voice broke. "How do you really know? We met in 1970. You didn't know me then. You don't know who I was in that fog." I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. When she spoke again, her voice was steady, strong. "My Ellen, always strong when I needed her. I know because I've lived with you for 45 years. I've seen you gentle with our children, patient with our grandchildren. I've watched you cry at sad movies and stop to help strangers and apologize when you've done the smallest thing wrong. That's who you are, Art. Not some monster in the fog, but the notes, a dishermono, are the notes of a traumatized young man who covered horrible murders and maybe had some kind of breakdown. Art, you need to talk to someone, a professional. This isn't about memory. This is about your mind playing tricks on you. Was she right? I wanted her to be right. But those notes felt true in a way that nothing else did. They felt like confession. There's a detective, I said. Retired. I found his name in the archives. He worked the original case. I need to talk to him. Need to know what he knows. Then talk to him. But Art, promise me something. Promise me you'll come home after. That you won't. That you'll let me help you through this. I promise. But even as I said it, I wondered if it was a promise I could keep. Chapter 7. The Detective of 41. Detective Mason lived in a care facility on the edge of town. The nurse who led me to his room warned me that he had good days and bad days. He might not remember things clearly, she said. The dementia has gotten worse. How fitting, I thought. Two old men with failing memories trying to reconstruct a truth that maybe neither of us really wanted to find. Mason was in his 80s, thin and frail in a wheelchair by the window. But his eyes were sharp when he looked at me. Arthur Mulligan, he said. I wondered if you'd ever come back. I sat in the chair across from him. You remember me? I remember everyone from that case. It haunted me my whole career. Never solved it. Never came close. He studied my face. You were there at all of it. Writing your articles. Always there. I used to think you knew something you weren't telling me. My mouth went dry. Did you suspect me? He laughed a dry rasp. Suspect? Son, you were my prime suspect for about 3 weeks. Young man unaccounted for time, obsessed with the murders. But then the chief shut it down, said we couldn't harass the press. And besides, he trailed off, looking out the window. Besides what? You didn't fit. The killer we were looking for was cold, calculated, methodical. You were just a scared kid who couldn't stop writing about it. Like you were trying to understand it yourself. He turned back to me. Were you trying to understand? I think I was trying to remember, I said quietly. I had gaps. Times I couldn't account for. I still do. Mason nodded slowly. Memory's a funny thing. Sometimes we block out trauma. Sometimes we create memories that never happen. Sometimes. He paused, his expression growing distant. Sometimes we confuse what we saw with what we did. I found my old notes. I wrote that I thought I was the killer. Did you write that? Or did you write that you thought you might be? There's a difference. Fear and certainty aren't the same thing. I pulled out the photograph I'd found in the attic. The one with the dark figure in the fog. I found this. Someone watching. Do you know who it is? He took the photo with shaking hands, brought it close to his face. Can't see it clearly anymore. Eyes aren't what they were. But I remember this photo. We had a copy. Looked at it 100 times, trying to identify that figure. He handed it back. Never did. The fog obscures too much. But it was someone real. Someone was there. Oh yes, someone was always there. In every photo from that time, if you looked hard enough, there was a shadow. A shape. Watching. He looked at me intently. The question isn't whether someone was there, son. The question is whether that someone was you. I don't know, I whispered. That's why I'm here. To find out. Mason was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, the last murder was April 16th, 1968. A girl named Jennifer Moore. You knew her, didn't you? Jennifer. The name hit me like a physical blow. Yes. I'd known her. She was in my journalism class. Right. Funny. She'd helped me edit articles, stayed late in the newspaper office talking about Hemingway and Capote, and whether journalism could ever really be art. We were friends, I said. She was found near the newspaper office. Near your office. The fog was thick that night. And you? He paused, struggling with something. You were the one who found her. The room seemed to tilt. What? You don't remember. You called it in. 2 in the morning, you called campus security. Said you'd gone to the office to work and found her on the steps. You were covered in her blood. No, that couldn't be right. I would remember that. I would. But even as I denied it, images were surfacing. Jennifer on the steps, her eyes open and empty. Blood on my hands. So much blood. And the fog, thick and sweet, wrapping around everything. They questioned you for hours, Mason continued. But you had an alibi for the time of death. 3 students confirmed you'd been at a campus bar until midnight. Jennifer died between 10 and 11, according to the coroner. You couldn't have done it. But I found her. Yes. 2 hours after she died, you found her. Why did you go to the office at 2 in the morning, Mulligan? You ever remember that? I closed my eyes, pushing myself back into that night. I'd been at the bar, yes, drinking to forget the fear, the paranoia. Then I'd left. Walked across campus. The fog had been so thick I could barely see. And I'd heard. What had I heard? Someone called my name, I said slowly. In the fog, I heard someone calling me, leading me toward the office. Who? I don't know. I never saw them. Just heard them. I opened my eyes. Detective, did you ever catch the killer? He shook his head. The murder stopped after Jennifer. Like whoever it was just vanished, or died, or moved on. We had theories, suspects, but nothing solid. The case went cold. He gripped the arms of his wheelchair. 40 years I spent in law enforcement, and that case is the one that still keeps me up at night. Because I always felt like the answer was right in front of me, but I was too blind to see it. What do you think happened? Really? Mason was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, I think someone was using the fog as cover. Someone smart. Someone who understood human nature. Someone who knew that fear and memory are unreliable. That witnesses can't trust what they see in the fog. That even the killer might not fully remember what they did when it lifted. Someone like me. Maybe. Or maybe someone who wanted you to think it was you. Someone who called your name that night, led you to Jennifer's body, made sure you'd be the one covered in blood and doubt. He looked at me with something like pity. Did you ever consider that, son? That you might not be the killer, but you were supposed to think you were? The words hit me like ice water. All these years, all this doubt, all this guilt. What if I'd been wrong about everything? Chapter 8. The Truth in the Fog. I left the care facility in a daze. The sun was setting, and with it came that familiar scent on the air. The warm, sweet smell of strawberry spring. No, it was too late in the season. This couldn't be happening. But when I stepped outside, there it was. Fog. Rolling in from nowhere, thick and unnatural. Just like 1968. Just like it had been that morning in Maine when this all started. My phone rang. Ellen. Art, are you okay? You promised you'd call. The fog's back, Ellen. It's here. What? Art? You're not making sense. I have to go. There's something I need to do. Art, wait. I hung up. I knew I was scaring her. Knew I was probably making a terrible mistake. But Detective Mason's words were echoing in my head. What if you were supposed to think you were the killer? I drove back to campus. The fog was getting thicker, turning familiar streets into alien landscapes. When I parked, I could barely see the buildings. I walked toward the old library, toward the Civil War cannons, toward the place where Christine had died, where I'd remembered her running toward me, begging for help. Someone was there, a figure in the fog, just like in the photograph. Who's there, I called. The figure moved closer. And as it did, I realized with a shock that I knew this person, had known them for 50 years. It was Tommy Reed. I wondered if you'd figure it out, he said. His voice was different now, colder. The friendly warmth from our reunion was gone. All these years, I thought you'd forgotten, really forgotten. But you started to remember, didn't you? Started to piece it together. Tommy, what? I was so careful, so precise. Made sure you were always nearby, but never quite there. Made sure you had alibis, but also had gaps in your memory. Do you know how easy it was? A little something in your drink at the bar. Not enough to knock you out, just enough to make things fuzzy. And then the suggestions. Art, you were acting strange last night. Art, where were you? Art, don't you remember? My legs felt weak. You killed them. I studied them, hunted them. The fog made it easy, made it beautiful. And he laughed. You made it perfect. The journalist covering the story, always there, always scared, always half convinced he was the one doing it. I used to read your articles and your notes and think how brilliant it was. You were confessing to my crimes, taking ownership of my art. Why? Why did you do it? Because I could. Because the fog called to me. Because I wanted to see if I could make everyone believe in a monster that didn't exist. Or did exist. Or was you. The ambiguity was the beauty of it. He stepped closer. And now the fog's back. The police found another body 3 days ago. And I realized, why not one more? Why not finish what I started? Tommy, you need help. You need. I need to complete the pattern. Christine reached out to you. And you failed her. They all reached out in their way. And you failed them all because you were too lost in your own head, convinced you were the monster. But you weren't, Art. You were just the scapegoat, the red herring, the perfect cover for the real monster. He pulled something from his pocket, a knife glinting in the fog. This time, though, there's no alibi, no confusion, just you and me in the fog. And when they find you, they'll think you finally remembered what you'd done and couldn't live with it. Suicide of a guilty conscience. It's poetic, really. He lunged. I stumbled backward, years of age making me slow. But I'd been expecting it. Some part of me had been ready. My hand found my phone in my pocket. I'd already dialed, already pressed the button before I'd even gotten out of my car. Tommy, stop. The police are already listening. They've heard everything you said. He froze, the knife inches from my chest. For a moment, we stood there in the fog. Two old men locked in a tableau of violence that should have ended 50 years ago. Then he laughed, a broken, hollow sound. You always were smarter than you thought, Art. Smarter than I gave you credit for. He lowered the knife slightly. But it doesn't matter. They'll never find me in this fog. They never did before. The fog's lifting, Tommy. Look. He glanced around, and I saw the moment he realized it was true. The fog was thinning, blown away by a wind that had risen from nowhere. The warm air was turning cold. Strawberry spring was ending, and with it his cover was disappearing. In the distance I heard sirens. I'd called Detective Mason from the car, told him my suspicions, asked him to have the police ready. The old detective, even with his failing memory, had understood, had believed me. Tommy looked at me, and for a moment, I saw the boy I'd known in college, the friend I'd trusted, the monster I'd never suspected. I'm sorry, he said quietly. Sorry that I made you doubt yourself all these years, that I turned you into a ghost of a killer you never were. But Art, I'm not sorry for the rest. I'd do it all again. The fog made me free. The police cars were pulling up now, their lights cutting through the last wisps of fog. Officers were running toward us. Tommy looked at the knife in his hand, then at me. One last thing, he said. Jennifer, the last one. She didn't reach out to you. She reached out to me, told me she knew. Said she'd seen me with Sarah Mitchell the night Sarah died. Said she was going to the police. So you killed her and called you, used your voice or near enough, led you to her body, made sure you'd be the one they suspected, made sure you'd spend the rest of your life wondering if your hands had done it. He smiled, sad and sick. I stole more than their lives, Art. I stole yours too. Your certainty, your peace. For 50 years, you've been my last victim. The police reached us then, took the knife from Tommy's hand, read him his rights, led him away into the lights and the clearing air. I stood there alone as the last of the fog burned away in the morning sun. Because it was morning now. The whole night had passed in what felt like moments. My phone rang. Ellen. Art, please tell me you're okay. I'm okay, I said. And for the first time in 50 years, I felt like it might be true. Ellen, I'm coming home, and I'll tell you everything. The whole truth. I'm here. I'll always be here. I know. I'm sorry I doubted that. Sorry I doubted myself. Art, you were manipulated, traumatized. You have nothing to apologize for. But I did. I had 50 years of self-doubt to apologize for. 50 years of living with a guilt that wasn't mine. 50 years of letting Tommy's poison work in my mind. I love you, I said. Come home. I did. I drove back to Maine as the sun rose, burning away every trace of that impossible fog. The news broke that afternoon, famous radio host arrested for decades-old murders. The evidence from the 1968 case was being re-examined. My notes, my articles, my confused testimony, all of it was being seen in a new light. I was contacted for interviews, but I declined. Let Tommy have his infamy. Let the world know what he did. I just wanted to be Art Mulligan again. Not the killer. Not even the reporter. Just a man who'd been lost in fog for 50 years and finally found his way home. Ellen and I are sitting on our porch now. It's spring, real spring, the kind that comes in its proper season. The fog that sometimes rolls in from the sea is just fog. Nothing more. I still have gaps in my memory. I still have moments when I doubt. But Ellen is here. Our children call. Our grandchildren visit. And slowly, day by day, I'm learning to trust myself again. Tommy was tried and convicted. The evidence was overwhelming once they knew where to look. DNA they'd preserved from the crime scenes. Journals he'd kept, hidden in his attic, detailing every murder. Every manipulation. Every moment he'd made me doubt my own innocence. He'll die in prison. And maybe that's justice. Or maybe justice is this me, alive, free, no longer haunted by a guilt that was never mine to carry. Me, remembering not the monster I feared I was, but the young man I actually was scared, traumatized, trying to make sense of senseless horror. Grace Keller wrote to me. Her sister's murder was solved. Her mother hadn't lived to see it, but Grace had. She thanked me for never giving up, even when I'd given up on myself. I wrote back, told her about Christine's letter, about how her sister had reached out for help, and I'd been too lost to give it, about how I was sorry. She wrote again, said Christine wouldn't want me to be sorry, that sometimes the fog, literal or metaphorical, is too thick for anyone to see through, that all we can do is try to find the truth when it clears. I think about that a lot now, about fog and truth and memory, about how easy it is to lose yourself when you can't see clearly, about how hard it is to find your way back. But I'm back now, here on this porch with Ellen beside me, watching the sun set over ordinary fog that smells of nothing but the sea. The phone rings inside. Ellen squeezes my hand and goes to answer it. I hear her talking, her voice warm and familiar. I close my eyes and breathe in the clean air. No scent of strawberries. No unseasonable warmth. Just the natural world doing what it does, following its proper rhythms and seasons. When I open my eyes again, Ellen is standing in the doorway. That was Tommy's lawyer, she says quietly. Tommy died this morning. Heart attack. I nod slowly. Feel. What, relief? Sadness? I'm not sure. How do you feel? Ellen asks. Like a story's ended, I say. Like I can finally close the book. She comes and sits beside me again, takes my hand. We sit there together as darkness falls and the real stars come out. Not the uncertain shadows in the fog, but clear points of light in a clear sky. Art, Ellen says after a while, you know it was never your fault, right? Any of it? I know. I'm learning to know it anyway. Every day. Good, she says, because I need you here, present, not lost in some fog from 50 years ago. I'm here, I promise. I'm right here. And I am. For the first time in half a century, I'm fully present in my own life. The monster is dead. The fog is lifted. And I'm just Art Mulligan, not perfect, not unmarked by what happened, but innocent. Finally, provably, certainly innocent. It's enough. It's more than enough. It's everything. If this story spoke to you, if you've ever doubted yourself, questioned your own memories, or felt lost in a fog of confusion and guilt, I hope it reminded you that sometimes the monsters we fear most are the ones other people create for us. Sometimes the guilt we carry isn't ours to bear. And sometimes, even after 50 years, we can find our way back to the truth. We all have our fogs, trauma, manipulation, self-doubt, or just the natural confusion of memory as we age. But the fog always lifts eventually. The truth always finds a way through. If this story resonated with you, if it reminded you that it's never too late to question the narratives you've been living with, or if it simply gave you an hour of suspense and mystery, I'd be grateful if you'd like and share it. Your support helps these stories reach others who might need to hear them. And remember, you are not the monster you fear you are. You never were. Thank you for listening.